Welcome to Unlocking the Parenting Code, all about boys. I'm Kathy, and this season is dedicated to exploring the unique world of raising boys. Parenting boys today can feel like trying to crack a complicated code, a mystery, especially when it comes to understanding their inner emotional world. Together, we'll dive into real life stories, share practical tips, and uncover insights to help you and your son thrive, not just survive. So grab your coffee, settle in, and let's unlock the parenting code, one boy at a time.
Okay.
Today, we are joined by a special guest, Murun Enkhmurun. Murun is a mother of two, an 11-year-old daughter and a 3-year-old son, and a full-time PhD student and a part-time lecturer specializing in neuroscience in psychiatry at the University of Occupational and Environmental Health in Japan. With a unique blend of academic insight and real-life parenting experience, Murun brings a thoughtful approach to fostering resilience and independence in her children. Her passion for mental wellness, outdoor activities, and her journey in balancing family life with her demanding studies has equipped her with invaluable perspectives on raising emotionally strong, independent children. Today, Murun will share her wisdom on building resilience in both her daughter and son. Let's dive into her journey, her family values, and the insights she has to offer all of us on this parenting path. Welcome to the show, Murun.
Oh, thank you very much, Kathy. Thanks for having me.
Murun, can you share some of the highlights about yourself and your parenting story so far and some of the challenges that you've faced along the way?
Sure. First of all, let's start myself. Okay. I'm a Mongolian, and um, my background is like a little bit mixed. I'm a Mongolian, born there, and my childhood, I spent it in Russia, Moscow, with my mom. And so it gives me like this open-mindedness for myself. Like, and also it was a little bit challenging because when I was in Russia, because of my outlook, and I'm Asian, so I was not a Russian there. And but after spending some time in Moscow, I went back to Mongolia, and I was not Mongolian enough there. So it was, as a child, it was a little difficult. And then, yeah, I get educated in Mongolia and did my undergrad in Mongolia as a medical doctor and worked there for 2 years, and then moved to China for my master in neuropsychiatry. And I've been studied in Nanjing, Southeast University for 3 years, and then went back home and worked there for 2 more years, and finally came to Japan for my PhD journey. And
Wow.
yeah, I'm doing my PhD in a psychiatric department as I'm more interested in depression. Even I'm doing my master in neuropsychiatric uh, neuropsychiatry in China. I was more interested in like post-stroke depression, and then wanted to dive into depression more, and then doing my PhD in a psychiatric department here in Japan. And as my parenting journey, it's might be like quite interesting. As Mongolians, we are our average age. Well, it's increasing now, but it's quite low compared with the global average. Before it was like 65 to 70. Now it's increased like more than 70, but it was like 65 or below. So in that case, we started life quite early. So as a Mongolian, to meet the social requirement, my family life started very early too. And me and my husband, we met actually, we know each other since the high school. And we had a relationship in university time. And Yeah, he's a doctor too, and we married when we were 21. And my parenting journey started when I was 21 too. So
Ooh.
it started very early. That's why I'm now like 33 years old, and I have a daughter who's 11 years old. So and then later when we turned 30, we had our son who's now at 3 years old. And it was challenging. Yeah, it was challenging. But I would say like when you are young, you less care, like kind of your responsibility level. It's even like in neuroscience, it's already proved that our prefrontal cortex, the part that responsible for our responsibility, logical thinking, is only developed when we turn like 28, 29, right?
Mm-hmm.
Very late.
Yep.
So before that, we were like free spirits.
Mm-hmm.
But the one thing we both had in our common was like we were really energetic, and we really do believe that if you give us like the point, then we were ready to raise this whole world, you know. Like we were like that much confident for life we're building. But well, luckily it went well though. And also like that time when we were when we become a parents, we were 6 year medical students.
Mm-hmm.
And we were planned that pregnancy, so we gave a birth and during a summer vacation,
Mm-hmm.
so we never like lose time for the study as well. So it was like you need to be a parent, like need to take care of the babies, and baby want to like wake up several times at the night, but in the morning you have to go to school.
Mm-hmm.
Well, so it was not easy, but as being young and also like lots of support from the family, like
Yeah.
the parents and the parents-in-law were supported. They came to our house in the early morning to take care of the baby, and we go to school and come back. And it was quite fun journey though, if
Oh.
I see it from uh, at this point. Yeah. And
So when you came, your son was born in Japan?
no, later my son was born in Mongolia,
Okay.
but we came to Japan when he was 8 months old.
Okay. So you didn't have the same kind of support when he was.
Exactly. That is the reason why like I found maybe it's a raising boy thing, or maybe it's a raising kid and abroad,
Mm-hmm.
or maybe is uh, we get older. Well, not really old. Like this, that is 30, 31 is the age of someone get their first child, or
Yeah.
like, or just
Yeah.
start their life. But for us it was like okay, we're old. And like in a Mongolian norm, it's kind of like oh, you're already old. Or
Yeah.
yeah.
How do you find your like that you can balance, like a full-time student, a part-time lecturer, full-time parent? Like how do you balance all of that? Like what does your daily life look like?
Okay, my daily life is quite chaotic, I would say.
Hmm.
So yeah, as for both my kids, we were studying, right?
Yeah.
So in the well, for my son, we wake up like usually I um, tired a lot, so tend to sleep. But life is not allowing you to sleep sometimes.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
hoping that like I'm a really positive person, and hoping and also knowing that it won't last longer,
Yeah.
well, like motivates me to wake up. Okay, so and the good thing about Japan is they their hoikuen nursery school accept the kids as young as 6 months.
Mhm.
So we in our hospital we have like our hospital affiliated nursery,
Yeah.
which helps a lot since my journey in Japan. So in the morning we had like all the breakfast and thing, but the good thing is also my daughter is already 11 years old, and as being a Mongolian daughter, she's already like independent too,
Hmm.
and she helps a lot. Like some morning she even cook like crepe or
Oh.
pancakes,
Hmm.
she helps a lot, and making a coffee for us. Oh my God! Without her, I don't think I can make it. Yeah, and then we drop the kid to the nursery, and then go to the work and do my research, and then usually it's like sometimes it's really stressful because that research not really goes as you planned all the time. And also another thing is like doing this academic work gives you, for example, if you do like some kind of other job, let's say if you work in a factory, you finish your work and done.
Hmm.
You don't have to think about that. But this academic journey, or in like a general in doctor thing, we do think about our work a lot.
Yeah.
We kept our patients in our heart, in our head, like, oh my God, what do you think? How is she doing? Is she getting better? Is he getting worse? And then like the academic journey too, like how this result is, what does this result means? Is it like a good thing, bad thing? Yes. So like your brain is all the time is like overloaded.
Yeah.
And yeah, this whole chaotic academic day pass, and then um, take the son up and met my daughter at home and started like cooking, preparing for dinner, and then like all this preparation, uh, shower, bath, and then like trying to chase them to for a sleep, which he doesn't want, and he always like yelling, "Asobitai, wanna
Mm.
play." I found like the boys are way more energetic than the girls.
Yeah. Very,
They,
very common.
as I know, my daughter were like used to sleep since she was a 6 months old. She used to sleep around like 10, 11, and like stopped waking up in the middle of the night and then wake
Mhm.
up at like a 6 a.m. But my son, oh my God, that's a different story. He would awake like 4 times, sometimes 5 times a day, which is like really hard as well.
So what, okay, so then let's talk a little bit about those differences because, you have a view of both a little girl and a little boy, and also at different ages and stages. So what's been the most surprising thing about raising a boy?
Uh, First of all, it was like their energy level.
Hmm.
They're like so energetic. And also, I don't know, it's like a individual thing or common in a boys. My son is more like really doesn't like to give up.
Okay. Yeah.
The daughters are like, we call it in Mongolian, we call it like soft-eared.
Okay.
The girls are like easy to follow the rules,
Hmm.
easy to do like what parents say. But boys, or at least my son, no, like he does exactly opposite
So
what
why do
I
you why do you
say.
think that is? Like, I mean, he's also a toddler, so he's going through a stage of independence and just understanding his own power.
Yeah, exactly. Like this toddler thing, yeah, I'm familiar with my girl
Hmm.
daughter. And I used to, what my approach was like, we need to like approve their independence. And then I usually do like giving them a choices, but the
Hmm.
limited choices, but giving them the idea like, oh, you're doing your choice.
Yeah.
like, okay, do you want to eat pancake or crepe? Like, no other choices, but still
Yeah.
you have some choices.
Hmm.
But for my son, it doesn't work. Like, I'm literally using the same approach how I raised my daughter to my son, but somehow it's not working well.
So that's an interesting way that you phrase it when you said that you're raising your son the same as you raised your daughter,
And which is not working.
and it's not working.
It's
So
not working.
it's
So
kind of
I
that's a
need
really
new
good
approach.
signal. Yes, that's a really good signal.
Yeah.
Um, so when your son is frustrated or angry, like what kind of strategies do you use to help him
Uh,
get through things?
like when he's in his tantrum, like crying all around. First of all, I give him a time. Like, okay, let him cry. All emotions are valid. Like
Hmm. Yeah.
usually, for example, in our culture, we don't really spend time with the kids as Western people do, or because, well, okay, traditionally we're nomadic people, right?
Hmm.
We have lots of things to do outside of the house. So even and also like it's maybe this Asian thing. We're not really like cuddle or like expressing love as Western people do.
Hmm. Yeah.
And sometimes even now it's rare, but usually in traditionally speaking, uh, parents are need to like milk the cow or carry this like sheep flock or horse flock. There's like a lots of crazy lots of works in a
Yeah.
countryside and living as a nomadic people. So it's you cannot sit with the baby all the time. House, it's rare. And inside of the gir, that's our traditional housing, the
Yeah.
round shaped house,
Yeah.
and inside middle of the house there is like a fire, what is called uh
I know exactly what you mean. I don't know if it
yeah,
has a,
so like this thing, so it
yeah.
is like very dangerous for the kid, right?
Yeah.
So what the parents usually do is like they're putting the belt, the soft belt, like a Japanese obe,
Hmm. Yeah.
putting the kid like from the belly,
Yeah.
tie it,
Yeah.
and tie it from the bed.
Yeah. Very
So
similar to Japan.
yeah, so the kids are safe there,
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
and then like the parents can do like what they have in the
Right.
front. So in that case, like we are not really like, oh, okay, like taking care of the baby like 24/7.
Hmm.
No. So maybe it's the one thing that we are giving like this kids as oh yeah, and also like for in that case, like baby crying is kind of nothing. Like, hey, he's crying. Okay, yeah, he can cry. Like, and then leaving them, and
Hmm.
they will find out the way they can solve themselves, or like kind of like giving all the power to them. Do you want to cry? Cry. And when
So
you
it sounds like a very different viewpoint of attachment. So, yeah, it sounds very different than the way Western countries attach to their children, or like if you said the same kind of thing in a Western country that you just let them cry or whatever, the
that's
first
a
thought.
domestic violence, right?
Yeah, well, that or like, well,
Child
how
abuse.
does that parent deal with the guilt of hearing their child cry? Like
Uh,
there are so many ingrained cultural, constraints around what your behavior is and what that means. It's quite interesting to hear a different kind of attachment. So, is that how you were raised?
uh, did I read? I do. I'm not really much like remember what my childhood will look like,
Yeah.
but in our culture, we have this story. Like, okay, there were like the very loving parents, and they had a baby son, and he gets whatever he wants. And the baby son one day like cried over to get the scissors.
Mm.
He was like crying like a crazy. So the parents gave the scissors, and accidentally the boy put the scissors in his eyes and he stopped seeing. Well, it's kind of like a scary story,
Yeah.
but the conclusion is like you can like crying is better
Mm.
than being blind.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
crying is like a not toxic thing. Like
Yeah.
crying is okay. It's not really like as bad as the other things, like other accident, other like yeah. So yeah, we're kind of like letting the kids cry is
Kind of like
common.
natural consequences.
Yeah, yeah.
So would you say that like the view of parenthood, like what you feel is your role as a parent and kind of like, well, what would it look like in your eyes of what a successful parent is? Like one of the things that you said right at the beginning, and it was interesting because just yesterday I had a conversation with a lovely young lady, older than you, having her first child, and one of her biggest worries about before giving birth is that she said she worried that she would lose herself. She would lose her identity because she would go from being this professional, independent career woman and then have to, kind of turn the page to become a mother and protector and caregiver for this small human being that she's bringing in. So her that reflects, in my opinion, that reflects what her concept is of what it means to be a parent, what it means to be a mother. And then adjusting that, at some point she'll have to adjust that so that it feels right. So she doesn't lose herself, but she kind of finds herself in parenting. So from your like you have a very distinct cultural background. So from your own experiences, what do you think the role is of parents you know, and how does that come out like with your children?
So first of all, I need to mention this thing. There is no such perfect parents.
Mhm.
We
Yeah.
all have our like uh, good times and bad times.
Yep.
And as a parent, I know that all parents has their own guilt for their children.
Yep.
So that thing has happened to me a lot too. Like, but I'm like kind of like started accepting as a neuropsychiatrist. I know like how
Hmm.
the brain can trick us.
Yeah.
So my perspective of parenting is like my main goal in like in this situation. I would think like, oh, I did a good job kind of thing is like preparing like making my children to as independent as possible and also as resilient as possible, because one thing, even in a culturally like in a nomadic culture, we do know that we won't be there forever for our kids. So the kids must learn everything by themselves. Like at least they have that ability to adaptate and to go through all the hardship. Like they need this resilience. So in my case, is like I would say, if my kids are really like able to adaptate in any situation and goes through all this like a good and bad thing that happens in our life, go through that without like kneel down, like yeah, that's like the one thing, and that's how I parent my kids as well.
So, I mean, that sounds like that makes really good sense, and it sounds like a really like really important preparation for just for real life as far as being able to be independent, to think for yourself, and especially to be resilient when things don't go the way, that you would hope they might go. How do you, how do you also attend to, making sure that that emotional connection between you and your children, that emotional, intelligence that you want to, be instilling in your children, how do you combine those two things?
Yeah, that like the how I speak or like how our people raise the kids is sounds like a bit far or like detached,
Hmm.
but it is not. Like even though we're like that much, not really like as close to the kids, end of the day, like maybe it's Asian culture, who takes care of the parents? The kids. Like,
Hmm.
and they're like, for example, our Mongolian kids are like really close their parents and they really have like thought thinking like, oh, I need to take care of my parents. Not because they were like, well, of course, because they gave a birth to me and raised me all these years, and but also like it's emotionally we do know like we need to take care of our parents. And in my case, how I like, for example, my son, he's like crying. Okay, I give him some time, let him cry. Okay, and then like the crying tone gets lower. Like, okay, then I will go there. Okay, how are you feeling? Are you good? Okay, let's talk about this. I usually try to explain what's happened.
Hmm. Yeah.
Like, oh, you know what? You cried this. Are you cried like because of this? And he would like nod. Oh, okay. So sometimes that things doesn't work what we wanted. Or like, I even for my daughter, I always talk them as an adult,
Yeah.
like as they're an adult, and all because I know that they do understand, just same as us.
Yeah.
And I never, for example, the parents or like people talk with the kids like, oh,
Baby talk.
like
Yeah.
yeah, I never talked with them like that, and I always talk with them as an adult, and yeah, try to just how I could have talked with an adult for them.
Yeah. So that I imagine that that creates a bond of very strong respect that, you are talking to them, at developmentally appropriate levels, age-wise, but not kind of dumbing down your language because you think they're not, competent and capable in their own right at any stage. What about the difference between your son and your daughter as far as things like, for example, like misbehavior? Like, is it the same kind of response that you just talk it out, or you know how is misbehavior and guiding them through how whatever you think of as discipline, how is it different between the two of them, or between, like, it must be different now than it was, when your daughter was 3 years old because you're different.
Yep, that is the one thing I read were like for the siblings, the parents raised them are a different people, not the
Yeah.
same.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's like one thing I'm really realizing recently. Like, oh yeah, it's like way different. My
Mm.
perspective has changed.
Yeah.
I'm changed. So like it's really different for each of them. And then like for the kids misbehave, it's hard. And it's not like this easy process like, oh, I talk and like I talk with
Hmm.
them. No, it is not. Like you will get angry, you will get frustrated,
Yeah.
you also go through all these emotional things.
Yeah.
And then as a parent, also you have to like be a role model for them.
Hmm.
Well, as my oldest kid is a daughter, the daughters maybe Asian daughter, I don't know. They're like less misbehaved.
Hmm. More
they're
compliant.
good. Yeah. And as a first kid of the family, she's kind of like a really uh, follow the path, and she doesn't even like to uh, break the rules and
Hmm.
misbehaving. And think in that case, like her personality and character really match this Japanese society.
Yeah.
So like she way more adapted than us, and
Mhm.
she exact like behave like Japanese people. But for my son, he there's like no rule at all, no rule. And I I don't like to like limit the kids. Like for example, he's running in the place he not supposed to run, but he has that energy. The boys has this energy, and
Hmm.
he really needs that run.
Hmm.
So what I do is like not limiting them. Like stop, you cannot run here. I was like run next to him, and like you know what? Let's slow down. Let's slow down. How about who run slower than who? Like
Yeah.
kind of like making the situation as a game thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's how it works.
What do you find like, the societal expectations for a little boy, like raising a little boy between Mongolia and now Japan? Like, are they very similar or are there differences or?
I've seen like several. Well, of course, as an Asian, we have similarities,
Hmm.
and but also I've seen like lots of unsimilar things as our history, culture, and but one thing really common is like men supposed to be strong, men
Hmm.
supposed to be like stand still, like don't cry,
Stoic.
or
Yeah.
yes, don't cry, don't show your weakness,
Yeah.
or like this thing is really common, even like not only Mongolia and Japan, it's like common in a worldwide, right?
It
Like
is. Yeah.
if you're a boy, like if you're a man, if you're becoming man, if you want to be a man, like be strong, be strong.
So
But
how do you navigate that? How do you navigate those expectations that society is putting on your son, or do you support them, or do you like how do you navigate it?
the first thing I realized raising both daughter and son, the thing was girls. Actually, girls are naturally independent than boys.
Hmm.
Somehow, it was like
Yeah.
really opposite how the society like requiring the boys to be strong, while the naturally women are more stronger. The daughters are more independent, even since the
Yep.
child, since the baby, and even in the nature, we're mammalians, right? And
Hmm.
like even in the nature, like who hunts? Females hunts.
Yeah.
Like so, it's naturally women are more stronger than men
Hmm.
and more independent than men, while our society asking the opposite thing. And what I saw was like my daughter was independent even from the beginning. She wants what she wants to do, and but I realized my son is more attached. Like
Much. Yeah.
he like he's kind of like really okay. He initiated like, "Daddy, come, mommy, come, let's hug,"
Yeah.
and like calling the
Yeah.
sister and like, "Let's hug, let's say like, love you," and like my daughter never did that. Like, well, of course, babies are like to cuddle, but like initiating and calling everyone to like gather together and cuddle, no.
Mm.
And also like everything he does, he's like, mommy, do it together, mommy, like he's really attached. He's
Yeah.
really attached.
Yeah.
And I'm all but when I'm seeing that, like how we like as naturally they're like really soft hearted, they're really like attached, and how we turn these boys into like this strong, this like I don't know, like really opposite masculine manner.
Yeah.
that's one thing I'm still wondering though. I couldn't like find it out yet as he's being young, but also in society, it's really bad for him if he's being soft as he's now. But one thing I saw from my husband is that he's really like, well, he's a good man, and he's not like prioritize this masculinity first,
Mhm.
as even a doctor and also late child of the family. He's kind of like spoiled in a
Mhm.
way that like all the siblings were taking care of him, and like the parents were also. And so yeah, what I saw from my husband is like he's really good at empathy. He's really good at like how to calm the people, and how he's like really understanding people person. And one of my conclusion is, as he's being the youngest and the late child of the family, he's kind of spoiled.
Mhm.
So in a, not spoiled like whatever, gets whatever he wants, in not in that way,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
emotionally spoiled.
Hmm.
And so my conclusion is that like if we give more love, more attachment to the boys, they will become like emotionally intelligent person in the future. And like for the family, the dad's role is huge, right?
Hmm.
Like more understanding the husbands or the wives like had this freedom that whatever she wants to do, like, and more understanding husband you have, you will get like a, you will kind of like a bloom in this life.
Yeah.
And so the main goal for raising a boy is like preparing good husband, good fathers in the future, right? For so for that, one thing I like aiming for my son is like giving him as much as love he needed. Like I don't,
Beautiful.
I don't care like he needs to be strong. The already society have this pressure, like you need to be man, you need to be a man.
Yeah.
So like even this limited of time, we the mothers or the family needs to give like all the love to him, and in that case he might be able to like adapt all this love to him, and then like to become a man who knows empathy, who knows, who understand the feelings, who understand like, who respect the other people.
Yeah. I really resonate and speak to everything that you've just talked about. And, we can't, we're limited in how much we can influence society. Like we can all take, small steps, and those small steps add up. But as far as our own sons go, what happens in the home is the most critical part. So when parents can understand what you've just talked about, like that's the real inner emotional world of little boys. And when they have a home that they can be their real self, that they are nurtured and loved, and they don't have to be putting on these masks of being, stoic and tough and being what society says boys are supposed to be, then their heart stays open. And maybe that's like what you're saying as far as in the future, how they will stay intact. They will have to still perform and adhere to what society says just to be able to live without a lot of chaos and conflict. But if even just in the family, if they know that they are deeply loved and accepted for who they really are, then that will help them just allow them to grow into, being the best version of a man that they can be. So I find it very interesting that your field of study is in neuroscience and psychology. So, do you find that you're able to incorporate some of the things that you learn because you study those different, categories of emotional and mental health, and that those help you to be strong enough to push back against what society says you should be doing when you're raising your son? Like, is that a factor in your thinking?
Yeah, of course. Like this, studying neuropsychiatry is opened my eye a lot.
Hmm.
And one thing I know for sure is that even it's a man or woman, we're still human beings. We all has this feelings. We all this hormones going through our bodies. And another thing, like for especially for raising a boys thing, there were like some clients, very few, because like men hesitate to come to like a therapy session or the psychiatric department. It's creepy.
Yeah,
That's why like they were not
yeah,
really hesitant. But what I'm seeing in a like practice, the men are like having a struggling with lots of mental issues
yeah,
just because of they were told since the childhood like be a man,
yeah.
be tough, be strong. So they kind of like closed all those emotional feelings inside of them, and they didn't allow themselves to release it out. And then it will become a problem in a later age. They like trying to be a tough, strong man while they're not, which is
Hmm.
like uh, faking it.
Yeah.
And then all just same as like all the fake thing, how it works, it didn't go well, right? So like their mental health is also like really in a bad condition.
Hmm.
So that's the one thing also like from the practice I saw like we need to let the boys, especially boys, like naturally women are like to express themselves. They're
Yeah.
good at expressing themselves. Maybe because like how we raised them, like, oh girl, oh, are you crying? Oh, what's happened? Tell
Yeah.
us. Like, but for the boys, they're crying like, oh, be a man,
Get
like
over
that
it. Yeah.
tough guy. Yeah, tough guys never cry. Have you seen like this tough guy crying? No, right? So stop crying. Kind
Yeah.
of like we
Yeah.
just limit them like right there and
Yeah.
let them stop exact the moment. So that's why like they're really bad at expressing the emotions, which is in a later life, it's really problematic.
Hmm. Yeah.
And if you're being you're in a problem, then your problem becomes the other's problem too. Like become a family problem. It's become a relationship problem.
Yeah. Yeah. It's really important. Ron, if you were going to share one piece of wisdom with other parents about raising young boys today, what would it be?
Well, you know that not that I'm not in the position that's sharing a wisdom, but I can share my experience. For raising a boy, as I just say, like we need to let the boys to express their emotions, and we need to like allow them feel what they feel, and we um, need to like acceptable what emotions they're going through, and like just as emotionally, we need to put the boys and girls at the same page. Like how we treat girls when they're emotional, and the boys are going through the same thing too. So we need to understand that thing, and it might be like really helpful. And as then naturally they're being like really attached and stuff, we need to give more love to them to prepare loving men in the later.
So how would you encourage um, a mother who doesn't have the background that you've got academically to understand, those nuances, how would you encourage them to, you know, be strong enough themselves to believe that this is the best way to support your son, rather than, which often happens, is even though a mom sees that her son is very sensitive, that wants to be more attached, all the things that you mentioned, she sees that, but she is so worried that they're not going to fit into society if they're that sweet, if they're that sensitive, that she feels she has to toughen them up. Like what, how could they get to the same place or a similar place that you're at now?
What I do for it, it's like these are two different things. For as a parent, as a mom who likes to like independent and resilient kid, who wants to raise like independent and resilient kids, what I do is like I give them this independent or like resilience skill in a different way. Like, for example, if they're doing something and like asking like, mommy, come here, help, like this block is not working how it's supposed to work. It's like I go there, sit there, but like I don't do it for them. I think you can do it. What I say is like, I think you can do it because you're able to do it. Do you have hands? Yes, they would say like, okay, then let's do it. You do it. And like, for example, this is like because my son is still young. This is what I used to do for my daughter. She went to the Russian school when she was like a 6, so without knowing any language. It was really hard. She was like literally crying. I don't want to go to this school because I don't understand anything. And what I used to tell her was like, oh, you know what? You were born even like cannot talk at all. You cannot talk even in Mongolian language, remember? But you learned. Remember how good you're talking now. So this is the same path you're going through. And it at the moment you don't know it, but you have all this potential to learn it. So in that case, like the kids become like a more confident. Oh I yeah, I do remember. I was like I couldn't talk at all, but now I'm speaking in Mongolian. And later she was like speaking. Now she's fluent in Russian. And same thing happened when we came to Japan as well. Like no, I don't understand anything. And then the same story. Oh, do you remember how you learned the Mongolian? And do you remember how you learned the Russian? It all started from zero, right? So it's the same case again. Like,
So
so
you really work on empowering them. Like,
yeah. Like,
yeah.
and in that case, it's like they become more resilient. At least they know, like, okay, it can be bad at the moment, but I can go through it.
Mhm.
I can learn it. I have the potential. So, like, emotionally supporting them and giving them this approach of like saying like you have all this potential to go through this difficulties is a different thing.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
emotionally, we can all be like vulnerable and it's fine. But for the like life in a work, there's like you need to go through something, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah,
Wow.
that's my approach.
Well, I know that like this is our longest conversation, and I know that I could talk to you forever because we're on so many similar pages as far as understanding what a boy needs. But I'm very mindful of your time, and I know that your workday is starting soon. So I have two final questions that I'd like to ask you. And the first one is just for fun. It is, what would the title for a movie be about your family life? And then what would be a summary or a short synopsis of that movie?
uh, when you're asking this question, like the the word is like I don't know why, but tough love is just popped up in my head.
Yeah. Yeah.
why tough love? But yeah, maybe it's like how we Mongolians raise kid, or at least how I'm raising my kid. It sounds or it look like really, oh, this mom is like a hard, like not really like this soft-hearted mom as like a typically we want, but still we're like a really loving our kids as a parents. We all this love in us, but we don't show it all the time, and also we cannot. That's like a really wrong approach, I would say, at least for me. So yeah, the title would be a tough love, and in a way that also like sometimes my son and my daughter was like they were complaining about they're not getting what they want, but it's for their own good, like at least from my perspective.
Hmm.
So it can be like tough, but in
Yeah.
a later for their life they were like, oh,
Yeah.
mom did a good job, like what she did was like awesome. Kind of like, yeah, that like, that's the love. That being tough and being hard for the kids is also like tough even for us,
Yes.
but it's still a part of the love, like.
Yeah. Wow. I love the different cultural components of this conversation. And I think that's where we all grow a little bit to understand that everyone looks at things differently, but like almost all the time, the core of it is really love, no matter
Exactly.
what culture, what. So, yeah, I think that's beautiful. Okay, the last one, and it will be words of wisdom, and you do have wisdom to share. But what I want you to picture is yourself when one of your two children are at the moment of creating their own family. They are having their first child. What would you tell them? Like, what words of wisdom about parenting?
Ah, I would tell them like prioritize themselves first.
Hmm.
And I really do believe that like uh, at some point of my life, like after losing my mom, I was in a really bad like a depression thing, and at that moment I couldn't really take care of the kids, even myself. So if you, mom or dad, all the parents in a good shape, the kids will be good.
Yeah.
So I would I would have say like take care of yourself, prioritize yourself, your happiness first, and
Hmm.
then like the other things will follow.
Beautiful. Good advice. Very good advice. Well, thank you very much for joining us today and Murun for sharing your insights. And I know how precious a parent's time is, and I hope you feel that I've honored your time. It's been such a pleasure to talk with you, and I'm sure that our listeners will enjoy this episode as much as I have. I can see your work environment is
Co-workers came.
starting to get busy. Yeah. So I think we've timed it just right. But thank you so much. I've thoroughly enjoyed it, and I'm very grateful for the time that you've given us.
Thank you very much for having me, and my purpose was like sharing the experiences, and yeah, I hope like the people find something from our conversation.
I have
Yeah,
no
thank
doubt
you
there
very
will be
much.
lots of things in here.
Thank you.
Thank you, Moran. If you're a parent raising a boy in today's complex world, be sure to explore sonhoodcoaching.com. You'll discover expert guidance and support designed to help you unlock your full parenting potential. As Amelia Gambetti says, this job is too difficult and too beautiful to do alone. Together we can explore this adventure and discover the magic of raising boys.